So you have these good intentioned people, no matter how you disagree or might agree with the schools themselves, but being funded on the back of homeowners is a travesty. It is a sin against the moral fiber of any reasonable and good person. And so that is a big dilemma. It's one of those things that is not discussed in the much other than complaints about property taxes. Oh, we hate property taxes being so high. I mean, you hear that a lot, but you don't get to the root cause of that. Well, all you teachers are, does that make you an accomplice in criminal behavior? And the answer is yes, without a doubt. No matter how you slice it, you participating and forcing people to pay rent on property either they have already paid for. Most people don't think about it because they have mortgages and their taxes go into their mortgage payment. And so when they get to the end of their mortgage and they go to pay for their house, and all of a sudden they still have massive bills every year, like, oh God, thought I own my house now. No, you don't. You're never going to own it. You're never going to own your home. And that is to me, that is people not realizing who the baddies are.
So Kevin Schmidt, you are the main guy behind Mystics of Texas, you and your brother and your wife and just anybody who wants to join in. Your website explains it all, mysticsoftexas.com. You have been very successful in your life, and you've learned, and you're still learning, a lot of valuable lessons that I think are very important for the world to learn, and you're generous enough to be exploring those and to be sharing those with people and yourself and your peers on your YouTube channel, Mystics of Texas, the same name. The library that you're sitting in I was very impressed with it. I mean, you're very well read, very educated. You've traveled the world. You've been very successful in life. And you and I are both in Texas. You're Mystics of Texas, and I'm a couple hours south of you. What do you think? Is it appropriate that my style of choice today for our talk?
Oh, I think it's fantastic.
Should I ditch the cap?
I'm not a big fan of the propaganda-laden flags, but Texas is a decent place to be in the world.
It is, yeah. That general area, I mean, to put all the political borders aside, whether it extends into eastern Louisiana or Oklahoma, I know exactly what you mean. I'm with you. I would rather be nowhere else in the world right now. There might be better places to be, but we're in a pretty good situation right now. We're in a unique situation where we can still explore ideas of freedom and practice it, because that's kind of disappearing quickly out there, don't you think? I mean, you've been around the world. What happened? Like, you were almost caught when COVID started. You almost got trapped in India. What happened there?
It was great. I wish I would have got trapped. It was fantastic. We went to see. It was one of those experiences in life where you should just say yes. And there's so many experiences in life that just fall upon us, and we tend to drag our feet or say, "Oh, I need to think about it," or "I need to do this or that," or make excuses. And I had a friend of mine who was a minority partner in a really nice restaurant in Marshall, which is a small town close to me. And I was sitting there, and he walked up to say hi, and that he was in town, and we were just chatting it up. And he said he would like to come out and visit me at the farm because it's pretty common practice. And he said, "Hey, I'm going to India," which he has a home and a big manufacturing facility there, and he said, I'm going to be there for a couple of months. He goes, you want to come over and visit for a while? And I didn't have to think about it. I didn't put it off. I knew that whatever my plans were, I could reschedule them, rearrange it, because being able to go to a foreign country like India that is so vastly different than, let's say, traveling Europe, where you still feel, the Western roots, it's different than the United States, but it's still not so different where it's just a massive punch in the face. It's like, it's not a massive culture shock. And man, going to India was just like a whole different planet. It was phenomenal. And we get there, we're having a great time. We rode there 2.5 weeks or something like that. And as we're getting ready to wind down the trip, we started hearing all this news of how bad this COVID thing was, and how their travel restrictions were being kind of talked about. And I really could have cared less. Like, I thought it was all a joke. Like, I did not think that the entire world would have shut down. And well, now I know better. I mean, I should have known, but I just didn't think that would really take place. So we didn't hurry along. We just hopped over to the Middle East, went to Qatar, hopped on a couple of camels, went out to the Saudi Arabian Qatar border, and had a great time. And speaking of the Middle East, at least in Qatar, wow, the people were phenomenal. Everybody in the States is, especially parents and friends, say, oh God, be careful. You're going to the Middle East. You're going to India. Oh my gosh, be careful. And man,
You once mentioned to me how India, within the borders, once you get there, once you get through all the bureaucracy, it's actually one of the freest countries. What was it you said about that? I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, you could feel the reverberations of the Indian, the British occupation in India, and just the bureaucracy. And then once you got past that at the airport, and immediately stepped outside of that bureaucratic quagmire, you instantly saw like the most vast freedom everywhere. Like, we think of, we're an entrepreneurial capitalist sort of country, which I think is almost the furthest thing from the truth. We are a corporate, well,
Oligarch?
we're not, yeah, it's kind of like a corporatocracy. We're like ran by big corporations, and the entrepreneurial spirit has quickly, within my lifetime, has quickly diminished every year. It's more and more people, oh, I got to go to work for somebody else. I got to go to work for this big company. I got to go to work for, whatever. And it's not the same as when you're in India. You see mom and pop shops everywhere. It's not dissimilar from going to small cottages and villages in Italy, where you got your butcher, you have your little small wine store, you're going to go to the bread shop. Everything is just right there. You get to know where your food comes from. You get to know the people, and the service is great, and people know you by your first name, and everybody is interchanging value for value, and it's just a wonderful experience. And that has largely disappeared in this country. And to see that nobody cared about the police, which I thought was fascinating. Like, it's not that they disrespected them. There was no disrespect. They just didn't care. And by what I mean by that, if there was a cop behind you in the United States, everybody all of a sudden, kind of tenses up. Oh,
Yeah,
was I
because they're
speeding?
predators. They're predators.
Did I not turn my blinker on? Did I not fully come to a stop at that stop sign? Something. And and there nobody could care less. I thought that was just great. And you could, the driving was so striking because the 18-wheeler type trucks are a little different than here, but they had "Please honk" on the back of all of them written in their pretty painting, because honking was a sign of respect, a sign of courtesy. Hey, I'm right here, honk honk. So you can see me and notice me. And everybody was honking everywhere, and it wasn't like here where you get honked at like, oh man,
Yeah.
F you.
Yeah,
No,
completely. Yeah, about to say you're in for an ass whooping if you honk at somebody here.
right. And there it was the total opposite. They were grateful and expected you to honk, to let you know that, hey, I'm passing you, honk honk. Yeah. And that was just a wonderful, refreshing thing to see, that there was no road rage. It was just honk honk.
It's good to know that that's still out there right now, because this was only a couple of years ago you were over there. And I will argue, though, we still, at least in small rural USA, there are, the mom and pop stores. They're still there, but they're dwindling, and we lost a lot during COVID because they went out of business. But I try to defend them whenever I can. If I'm in a area and I'm hungry, I will make the effort to find. And if you put in Google Maps family restaurant, you're likely to find what you're looking for over the big chain. Always, always, whether it's a bar or a restaurant, whatever kind of business it is. I do think it's important to try to keep those companies alive, because if we don't have small businesses, then it's going to be a nightmare. Imagine just what it would be like. It was nothing but these massive chains to choose from. Um,
Uh,
yeah,
it would be hideous.
yeah, exactly. Well, Kevin, here's a broad question. I probably should have opened with this question, but what motivated you to start Mystics of Texas? How long you been doing it? What led to the work that you're doing right now?
Well, it really stemmed from me and my brother and a couple of friends would gather every Sunday, and we've been doing that for a very long time. I mean, it's probably, I'm going to guess, 6 or 7 years now, that we used to refer to them as documentary Sundays. And we would, whoever showed up, showed up. Sometimes it was just me and my brother. Sometimes it was me and a friend or a bunch of friends. So, and that's just the same way it is now. Sometimes it's just, one or two of us. Sometimes it's, 20 of us. And it just evolved into these conversations where, fortunately enough, we have a place here where when the weather's good, we can go sit outside at the outside kitchen, and we have a little fire, and we're just all talking, and we're discussing things that I wish I would have talked about and known about and considered whenever I was young in my formative years. And so
Yeah, but when you were young, you were learning these things, right?
Yeah, but a lot of them that I never really considered until I got older, and then I realized that nobody hardly ever talks about them. So we started talking about so many things at uh, our gatherings on Sunday, and then about a little more than 2 years ago, I think I said, well, let's just formalize that and create this farm here into just a sanctuary for people to come to meditate if they want on Sundays, to hang out and help. Like if anybody wanted to help out with a permaculture, and then if they're locally, of course, and they can keep the food. If they want to help pick the fruit, we got a pretty nice sized fruit orchard, 400 trees of apples, peaches, pears, plums, nectarines. If people want to come out and pick it and keep some and give it to the less fortunate, that's just what I did. I decided to turn it all into something that would benefit broader mankind than just me and Jill and our stepson out here, or my stepson. So, because all my boys, I had 4 adopted boys, and they're all, now they're all 30. So, they're not here as they used to be.
Kevin,
So, and we just turned it into, and it was great.
what about Stoicism on your website? Among many of those topics, that's one that I've started to kind of go into. The works of Marcus Aurelius. You have spoken extensively about that. What is that? What's that all about?
Well, if your viewers don't know, then you definitely need to go pick up Marcus Aurelius's Meditations. Oh man, it is so valuable. Or even better yet, you can go to the mysticsofTexas.com and go to our dissection of it. I think there's 8 or 9 parts so far. We got a couple of more to do. Where we really go into it and talk about just some of the most important highlights, how it benefits your life and every facet. Just phenomenal philosophy from one of the greatest minds of all time.
I'm glad you said that. You dissected a bit, and because it was Richard Grove who we met. We met through Richard Grove actually, who recommended that to me, and I downloaded it and I put it on a pen drive, and just listening to it in the car, and it's some heavy, overwhelming stuff. And then the way my car was set, that every time I turned the engine off, that USB drive reset. So I've listened to probably the first 20, 30 minutes of it over and over again. And then, but I haven't, here comes an excuse. I haven't made the effort to get it on my laptop or in other forms of media where I can keep going further into it. But it's it's verse after verse of ways to become a better, stronger person. What do you guys do then? Do you guys just take each little section and kind of break it down and how it applies to your lives, or what do you guys do with that?
All of that. We take each section of it, we read it, and we highlight what is to us the most important parts. And of course, you whenever you go to our website and you click it, it's connected to video thing. So you could even do that in your car. If you got the Mystics of Texas on your phone and scroll to it, you could do it that way too. It's really it was really helpful for me. I stumbled across Marcus Aurelius, I don't know, 30 years ago, and really just kind of flipped through it, kind of like what you would do with Sun Tzu and the Art of War or something. You just kind of pick some and then don't really focus on it. And it wasn't until 20 years ago or so, I just had a random thought. Wow, it sure would be cool to read Marcus Aurelius while I'm sitting here in the ruins of Rome. And it was great. I spent the whole afternoon sitting in the ancient ruins of the Forum reading Marcus Aurelius, and wow, did I just ever fall in love. I was like, this
So
is
Kevin,
just
most people have
phenomenal.
got most people have got a copy of Hemingway in their backpack when they're in Europe. You carry Marcus Aurelius. Hey, excuse
Well,
me, do you happen to have a copy of Meditations by Marcus Aurelius on you? Why, yes, I have. Here you go. Great.
here it is.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I don't have the book actually. I got, I like collecting books like yourself. But this was only last year. I'd heard, it came up, the topic, it came up at Marcus Aurelius Meditations. And then I finally went and downloaded the audio. And like I said, everything I'm doing, we're constantly exploring everything. Some things are new, some things you have experience with, but better late than never. So I definitely want to become more educated with what he has to say and everything. After a conversation, when I post this, I link everything there. So if we talk about it, it's going to be linked for anyone to go to the website, and they can go straight to wherever they need to go. So I'll link your section on that part as well. Kevin, what
Oh,
about you've talked about awareness? One of the keys to everything is being aware. My question is, how do you cultivate a state of more awareness? I know there's several ways. What would you say to that?
well, I mean, some people try to make it a little bit more difficult than what it is. It just takes a little bit of practice. And what I mean by that is what has worked for me and in my evolution of thinking and being and processing what it means to actually be alive is I often uh, view myself almost like there's an invisible camera sitting right over here, and I'm watching myself in this play of life. And I think, okay, would I like that guy? Would I like to be around that person? Uh, am I affable? Am I enjoyable? Do I put off good energy? Am I engaging? Am I a good listener? And after some practice with that, then you forget about the camera, and then you just start becoming aware. I like to think about the people that I meet and that are in my circle of friends that I want to and do my best to treat them as I would want to be treated. I want to be listened to, so I do my best to be a good listener. I like to be engaging, so I want to uh, make them engaged with me. So there's a meaningful dialogue, there's meaningful friendship that is a constant loving of the friendship soil, if you will, and always nurturing it and loving it and letting it grow and blossom. And as you just start to become more and more aware, especially with some breathing exercises or just uh, light meditation, like I really like to start off every day is I lay in the bed before I wake up, and that little kind of droggy feeling. You're laying in your bed and you're like, well, got to start the day. I like to take just a few moments, whether it's depending on how tired I am or how awake I am every morning, but I like to just lay there and contemplate the day for a few minutes. I like to think about, all right, let's go out into this day with an open, warm heart. Let's be, hey, that's my dog. Go into the world with some nice thoughts and know that I'm going to do the best to conquer the day and be productive and efficient and without being an ass.
So, how do you know there's not an invisible camera in the sense that, not a camera, but you know what I mean? Invisible something watching you.
Uh, well, that's an interesting question because there's so many things that our limited five senses cannot see. It's almost and is as though our touch, our smell, sight, hearing, it just allows us to not die. They're survival mechanisms. And because we are mostly space and a little bit of tiny percent of us that is not space is water. So it's an interesting thing. This bag of meat that we're in is mostly space and mostly water. It's a strange sort of thing when you start to contemplate that. That was sort of part of the topic, just barely. We touched on that with Tim Frick in a recent podcast that was just phenomenal because one thing that he said, which is true, and that helps you become more aware of yourself, is that we are the universe. A lot of people feel like they're detached from Mother Nature, the earth, this this rock that we're on. But we all are constantly drinking, we're constantly eating, our cells are constantly jumping off and renewing. And that used to be what scientists thought it was every 7 years that we were completely regenerated, and now it's about once a year that we are just completely new. And that is a phenomenal thought to think of us as being fluid. That means we are constantly intaking the earth. We're constantly excreting the earth. We are the earth. And if we are the earth, that naturally means we are also a part of the universe. We are stardust. So we are an expression of the earth. So if we come from the earth, we are a manifestation of the earth's consciousness, each and every one of us. We are the earth looking at itself.
Matter is neither created nor destroyed, right?
That's what they say, but
Yeah.
it's a phenomenal thing to try to wrap your mind around, that we are the universe expressing itself through us. That's a whole nother topic. We could have another podcast just on that subject.
Yeah, because you did mention with Tim that you had issues with the moment zero. And I mean, at the end of the day, none of us will ever really truly know any of that. But it's interesting topic to play around with, to think about. And yeah, I like the idea, the water, the flowing water. You drink a glass of water. Where has that water been in billions of years? That water could have been at the bottom anywhere. It could have been Michael Jackson could have had that same glass of water when he was 5 years old. Who knows? Those same molecules. You could go on and on in
That's
thinking
exactly
about
right.
that. And mind blowing if you think about it.
Yeah, for sure. Every breath you take, all of a sudden, some plant life converts that. Or we breathe it in, we breathe out. They change it back and clean it for us, and we're just steadily recycling everything. There is no more amount of water than there ever has been on this planet. So that is a phenomenal thing to think about, that we are always drinking the same thing. I like what Alan Watts says. If you don't know who Alan Watts is, I highly suggest you look
Oh,
him
I
up.
do. I used to
Phenomenal.
collect the little video, whoever made the edits, YouTube video edits of him speaking, and then they would add B-roll and footage to his words, and they were brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a phenomenal guy. His books are just incredible. Uh, I heard him say on one of his lectures, trying to explain the bag of flesh that we are, is that we're like in a bathtub. When you pull out the plug and you have the little swirly going down the drain, you can see the swirl. You know the swirl's there. You can kind of barely touch it without it getting messed up, but it's not really a swirl. It's just steadily moving water. And in that steadily moving water, you can make out, oh, that's the swirl. And that is our own human condition, because we're doing the exact same thing.
Alan Watts was he was English philosopher. He was when did he pass away? Is he from the 70s?
I think he passed away in the late 70s, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere
Yeah.
around there.
Yeah. When I started to
highly
go
recommend everybody.
down the rabbit hole per se, I came across his work. Whoever added some color to his works, his recordings, and I still have them somewhere, and they were just magnificently done. Yeah, and then not to be confused, there was another guy named Alan Watt who was a Scottish guy, radio announcer based up in Canada. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah, I don't, but that's definitely not the same Alan Watts.
No, not the
But
same guy.
you
Yeah.
you can go to Audible or whoever sells audio books, and you can still get his books, and they're great. Even read by him too. They're fantastic.
Kevin, what do you mean when you say the practice of the dissolution of the ego?
Oh, big question. The ego is this survival mechanism, just like our five senses. And it is very easy for us, at least it has been in the past for me, to get wrapped up in the idea that, ooh, I'm Kevin Schmidt. I've been more places. I've read more things. I've done more business. I've done blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden you kind of put yourself on this artificial pedestal. And then you begin to realize, well, that's kind of stupid. You think, I don't think my relationships have as deep of roots and deep of meaning if I place these artificial or outside experiences of life as who I really am, because that is not really who I really am. When I wake up in the morning, I don't wake up instantly that first few moments thinking, ah, me man, me Kevin, me conquer world. I yeah, I happen to wake up and it's like, here I am again. And I have the great pleasure of looking over at my wife, and all of a sudden I'm filled with love and joy, and all of those egotistical thoughts and judgments that I've had in the past don't matter. And I happen to be grateful for another day of being able to explore myself and being able to explore the world and make new friends like with you. And I think that is the value, that is the nourishment of life, is to be able to work at and maintain relationships the best you can. I mean, it does require the other party to make the effort as well, but part of the enjoyable experience is making those efforts.
Would you say
And
it's a
have
fine
the
line between confidence and arrogance, in talking about the ego?
um I think the confidence and arrogance are just a part of the ego. And there's
Okay.
a difference. I think, to me, the confidence um, can be ego based, and it can also be enhanced without the ego. Like I don't care if you judge me or like me or not. I'm here to make an effort to uh, be the best I can with you, and I hope that you are doing the same with me. And that in and of itself creates this comfort level where no confidence is really needed. Like, I'm comfortable. I'm comfortable in this bag of flesh, and I am doing what I can to make you comfortable, and hopefully you doing the same with me. And uh, that appears like confidence.
Okay. I like that, where confidence isn't needed. Yeah, yeah. Because I mean, I've always been the class clown kind of guy, or the party guy, sitting around at a party, and I tell stupid jokes. And I never cared if anybody found them funny or not. I entertained myself. I found them funny, and I couldn't have cared less if other people found them funny. I just entertained myself. And someone actually pointed that out one time. He's like, you don't even, it's win-win for you either way. And I don't know if that's, I don't know how to describe that. If that's just, I don't know if that's confidence or arrogance or both or what. I don't know. But
Well, I think that's great. As you telling jokes, I like to be very lighthearted and funny too. And I don't. Uh, I would prefer people got my own brand of humor and laughed or chuckled genuinely at my wisecracks. But if they don't, I'm still just as happy because I thought it was funny, and I'm the one that lives inside of this thing. So if
yeah,
you
the
don't like it.
attachment to ego is, according to this guy, Mark Passio, it's one of the biggest barriers to self development, the inability to admit you were wrong. And that really always resonated with me. And he called that the attachment to ego. It's kind of on the same.
Oh,
And you've got a whole section on your
yeah,
website
sure.
about the ego. So, it all kind of ties in together.
Yeah, the ego can be uh, your amigo, or it can be, really your worst enemy. And
I like that. Ego, my
for-
amigo.
yeah, but if you're not taming that ego to work for you, and you're not aware of your ego, and it's going to work against you.
Because what is the good
And
of an ego? The good thing about having an ego is it keeps you alive, right? You know, there's that self-preservation aspect to it.
for sure. And we get wrapped up in this idea that, I'm Kevin, and you're Chris. Um, but as we were just alluding to and talking about, what is Kevin and what is Chris, if all we are is a uh, fluidity of material coming in and out, and we are different every day and totally different every year, then where does Chris and Kevin reside?
Kevin, what have been, I know we mentioned meditations. What have been some other really influential works that have kind of helped develop and shape you into who you are today?
Hmm. I think it would not be necessarily a body of work such as a particular book or method. It's really my mentors from being young. I happened to read when I just got out of the army, or I was in the National Guard. So I was getting out of the Guard, and I was reading Think and Grow Rich. Oh, not Think and Grow Rich. I read that later. It was The Laws of Success by Napoleon Hill. And it had a statement in there, and he talked about it a while, that was really stood out to me. It said, take your four closest friends and divide up their income, and that is where you are. Divide up look at them and consider their intellectual curiosities, their minds. Like, you are the equivalent of the people that you're hanging around in just about every aspect. And I thought, wow, I really like and love my friends, but that's not who I want to be. So if I want to grow and evolve into something where I see myself later in life, then I need to find those people and I need to start hanging around them. And so that's what I did. And whenever I was in my mid 20s, uh, I became fortunate enough to become friends with, guys at the time, they were mostly in their 60s. And that just changed my life forever.
It's interesting. That ties back to what we were saying about ego, you know, because I've always tried to surround myself around people who are what I consider a bit, you know, better than me. Not better, but you know what I mean. And
Yeah,
so, you know, every day when I'm in autonomy, hanging out with the likes of Richard Grove and all of them, you know, they are some of the best, well read researchers out there. And I'm with them and I'm trying to hold my own. And that goes back to when I was in Spain teaching English. I remember I got this job at this academy and I was just this no low, just drifter English teacher. And somehow I managed to get in with this academy, and these were all really experienced old English guys. And it started there, you know, because someone had said the same thing. You know, you want to improve, you want to be surround yourself by those who you want to be more like. And that's some great advice. Yes, you got in with the old timers, and they probably had plenty of advice for you on how to become a better person.
for sure. Yeah, you just have to find out where those people are, where they hang out, where they have any groups or organizations. There's any, how do you get to become their friends?
Yeah.
Uh, and
Maybe
there's a
maybe at the
delicate
Cove.
balance. Yeah, there's an artwork to it that, you don't want to be creepy and you don't want to be nagging, and you got to takes time and patience, and those things take years and years to develop. And uh, I was fortunate enough. I had some of my friends. These friends were here this weekend. We had a really nice dinner in the barn with some waiters and two-person band, and it was really nice event. And I like to do that once or twice a year with just about two or three, maybe four other couples, but just a small, intimate gathering. So we just really spend the whole entire evening talking and chatting it up and having cocktails to get a loose tongue. And those guys were like the sub of my mentors. Like when I broke into this business group of people that met at the petroleum club, they were about 40-ish at the time, but I didn't want to necessarily be their friends, even though I looked up to them. I wanted the big boys. I wanted the ones that they looked up to, and that is what happened. But now to have them older, they're all bumping 70 or 70 and a little older, and it's fascinating to have those guys now wanting to come see me, and us being on equal footing with life experience, and the details of our life are kind of similar because I put myself on that pathway.
Kevin, what you did was, well, you 10x'd it. You figured out how to 10x it a long time ago. Grant Cardone, you figure your goal out and multiply it by 10, and you did it, and it worked. So good on you, man.
Yeah,
You
well,
know,
I can credit that decision or planting that seed in my mind directly from the laws of success, and reading that and going, oh wow, that's really true. I really need to figure out what I want to do, and whether or not it's going into, the people at the petroleum club. Most of them are in the petroleum business, but there are a lot of other things and professionals there, from attorneys and doctors and just everything, but real estate moguls and everything else. So I just thought, wow, this would be the place to go. So that's what happened. And over time, people start either liking you or not. And if they don't, you've got to try to figure out how not to be an ass, how you can be as genuinely charming as you can without being annoying to anyone, and provide some type of value to be able to start a conversation. When I mean value in the beginning, I mean, I'm not trying to sell them a proposition on anything. Just what is the value of when you walk into the room of deciding to sit down with me for a cup of coffee at breakfast in the morning, or lunch in the afternoon, or a cocktail later on? Is it am I do I make you at ease enough and comfortable enough, and am I talking in a way that makes you engage so that it's beneficial for you? So when you walk in, you see me and you go, oh, I don't want to sit with that guy, he's annoying as hell, and you walk off. There's those little nuances, those things that you got to cultivate, and it goes back to being aware. You have to be aware, but you don't have to be aware to the point where it's obvious you're being aware, like, oh God, did I say the right thing? Did I not say the right thing? You can always take those things way too far. It's just try to be comfortable with yourself. And then that shows with everybody else, I think.
you mentioned Napoleon Hill. I've read one of his books, the one that came out about his conversations with the devil. Have you read that one?
No, I haven't read that one.
It
No.
apparently was released like many years after he died. It was one of his family members that had all the manuscript for it. So that's kind of going around that book. Uh, I can't believe I just talked about it with Pablo recently. Yes, it's the Conversations with the Devil. Good Lord. I'll link it in the show notes when I figure it out. And plus your book, I'll link those as well. Yeah, cool. The the awareness, it circles back to what we talked about before. Um, it's kind of like an art, isn't it? An art being, some people can be better at it, some people can be worse at it. There are subtleties. It's the subtleties, and with practice, you get better at it. You could call it. Could you call it the art of awareness? I don't know.
Oh, for sure. It's definitely an art. And I think it's an art on so many fronts, and it takes just a lot of time practicing that and cultivating that. Like, let's say your spouse asks you to do something, and it's something that she likes to do, and she would like you to be a part of it, but you really don't want to, but you really love your spouse, so you have to start being aware of how that will affect your relationship if you don't show that interest in whatever that thing is. Even though she might know that you don't, but making yourself available for those expansions in the most important relationships are the most valuable. I like to keep going back. I go back to this one all the time because it was one of those moments that I just figured out. When I married Jill, we got married. We joke because we don't count by years; we count by months. So about 28 months ago, we got married, and part of the thing about me being married to Jill is that her boy was 10, and he plays in sports, and I have zero interest in going to baseball games, like just zero interest. And I knew that was going to be an issue for me. I was like, well, how do I get over that? Because I don't want to, I want to show support for Parker, my stepson, because I care for him, and I've really grown to be attached to him and love him. And so I want to be there for him, but I really don't want to sit in a ball field.
I feel you, man. I feel you.
But I also didn't want Jill to feel that I wasn't supportive of not only her but her son. So I was like, all right, how do I do that? Like, how do I make this work? And I was like, well, I do have this bag that I take everywhere with me that has my iPads and my computer and my journals and my work, and I can always put one ear pod in because I always listen to audiobooks everywhere I go. And I was like, why in the world can I not just take my work with me, ask her if she would mind? Hey, if we're going to go there and sit for a couple hours, I know I can watch and participate and support everybody, but I can also actually do the stuff I really like to do. And it doesn't matter where I'm at. I can be sitting in a ballpark, I can be sitting under a tree, I can be sitting in here. It doesn't matter. So, so she was totally awesome with that. And that allowed me to no longer have any angst about going to a baseball game. I was like, okay, all right, baseball games are fun. So you can find compromise in just about everything where I'm able to be supportive, and then they're able to be supportive back. Like, okay, if he's going to be here for this amount of time, then he's going to watch and be supportive, but he's also going to kind of do his own thing over in his own mind with his stuff.
Yeah, you leveraging technology to your advantage, and win-win.
Sure.
Yeah, technology is a double-edged sword, as you know, but use it to your advantage and be aware of when it's being used against you. And again, back to awareness.
All right, I'm going to be aware. I'm fixing to, on this podcast, kill a fly. So hold on. Can we do it? Can we do it? Bam. All right. Sorry about that. It kept flying around, sticking in my hair while I'm talking to you.
Yeah, it's getting colder now, so the flies' days are numbered. I think I saw my last fire ant of the season this morning. It was just one miserable fire ant there on the counter. I said, "You're done, man. I hope whatever you've collected for the winter, you're prepared, because tonight's going to be a cold one. I'm going to put a fire on tonight. I'm looking forward to it." Yeah.
We've been having we have fires out at our outside kitchen all the time, and I'm glad it's starting to get a little colder because, man, it's so nice to sit out there with friends and just chat it up and drink some wine, smoke a beautiful, magical cigar, and let all my dreams and smoke fly into the universe, and hopefully they come back.
There's a thing I do as far as awareness that helps me. I physically imagine, like, say, I'm sitting here in the house and I'm thinking, oh, what's going on? My mind is a blank. So this invisible barrier, like this ray coming, sweeping the land, and it hits the chicken house, like, okay, are the chickens all fed and watered? And it moves across. Oh, the studio. Is there anything to do with the studio? And I also do that with my body as well, sitting there in bed like you do, and I'll imagine this scan, just slowly going from, top to bottom, and what's going on, where are there issues, yeah, it's always my back in my case, but it's always the same. But that's an exercise that I try to do that helps me, for example. And I suppose there's so many different ways to do it to increase awareness. As a English teacher earlier in early years, and now doing these interviews, one of the hardest things for me to do, and I've gotten much better at it, is know when to shut up and stop when I'm blabbing on too much, because I hear it when I listen to other podcasters talk. I'm listening and I'm like, all right, okay, all right, stop blabbing on, let them speak now, because it's normal to get excited.
So Spartacus is anxious to say hi.
Hey, Spartacus, you remember me, buddy? Love those dogs,
Yeah,
man.
you remember Chris? Well, were you jealous of Chris? Are you jealous of the conversation? Well, we love you too.
Kevin, what about now? No, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say it's important to find whatever practice that you particularly like. So like some people can find passive sort of exercise, like walking, for example, just walking around, and or lighter workouts, or even harder workouts, or so many different things. Just sitting and doing. There's so many different breathing exercises that that people can practice, and wow, some of them are just phenomenal. If you never tried breathing exercises, I thought it was kind of goofy. 6-7 years ago, like, breathing exercises, I do that. I go jogging or do that's breathing. I didn't fully get it until I started paying attention and then actually doing it some. They're like, oh wow, that is something. I guess a bunch of different methods out there, but I highly recommend checking out some and finding some that you like. Because
have you ever tried the Wim Hof?
Yeah, oh yeah, those are great. And there's so many, and I highly
Have you done the ice dip?
It's really fun to do. No, I've watched other people do the ice dip.
Yeah.
Yeah, I might pass on that. I might be brave enough to go in one day. I haven't reached that level of of separating from my body yet.
Yeah, it's a thing, man. And I was doing the breathing every day for a while, and the cold showers, and I did attempt an ice dip in our pond, but honestly, it wasn't cold enough. I haven't done a proper frozen water, the frozen ice cold water dip. I can't say that I have, but what you were saying, we're talking about awareness, and we're talking about self-awareness, I suppose, but it's a combination of situational awareness and self-awareness, and it's a defense mechanism, isn't it? You go out into the world, the more aware of what's going on with you and around you, and if you're aware, like, you get that bad vibe from that person, it's a self-defense mechanism as well. Awareness, I think.
Well, then ego can be your enemy in a lot of ways. I can think back whenever I was in school, a teacher would say, hey, let's read this paragraph. You read it, Johnny. You read it, Jeff. Okay, Kevin, your turn. And I hated that. I didn't want to do that. My ego was saying, no, you don't want to look stupid. You don't want to, that's bad. but then with a little practice, a lot of people don't break out of that. So whenever they find themselves in professional life or with their kids or family or something where they need to read something out loud, or they're still afraid to do it because they never, their ego got in the way. They're like, I'm not going to look stupid. So they never even address that again, even though it's very likely that thing will come up again in the future. And that is with a lot of things. I was fortunate enough where whenever I was in high school that I wrote a kind of quasi love note to this girl that I wanted to take on a date. And she just broke my ego and crushed my soul and my self-image when she said, you write like a second grader. Like, why would I go out on a date with you when obviously you're not very smart? And I was like, oh, wow. It's like, man, I am. And I started reading that about.
Damn.
I'm like, man. Well, she chastised me and broke my self-image of, well, you can't hardly write legibly, and what you did write looks like a second grader. And man, did that ever, and instead of my ego drifting me into the way of not developing my writing skills in both what I'm writing and then how I'm actually writing, instead of avoiding that to do something where I looked better and projected a better self-image, I started figuring out how to make my handwriting legible. And then what types of handwriting did I like to look at? And so I started emulating those styles of actually penmanship and got pretty damn good at it. And then I thought, well, I'm going to start writing in a journal and start recording daily activities and all that stuff. And that'll just give me practice over years. So from like 16 until this day, and I'm 50, I have written in a journal practically the entirety of my life. And I'm not Shakespeare, but I am definitely a man of letters. That's for certain.
Kevin, I actually have perfect handwriting. Do you know that?
Do
How's
you?
that for ego to claim I have perfect handwriting? Come on, tell me something to write. I'll show you. Look at that. I'll demonstrate.
Yeah, you'll demonstrate to say that this podcast is incredible.
Okay. This podcast
Is incredible.
is incredible. It's almost perfect. What do you think?
Let me say.
Not bad.
Oh, that's pretty good. That's really good. That's a great handwriting. Very clear, very
Yeah, yeah.
legible.
Not bad.
Yeah.
I wrote a
In
lot as a kid.
my handwriting changes depending on my mood, but
Yeah.
it is I'm not going to show you that close, but you can see it's
Yeah.
that's on a rough fast day. And then I'll have like when I really want to sit and write, I'll just sit and write.
Yeah,
But
nice.
my handwriting is
That's a
is
proper
pretty damn
journal
good.
you do as well.
Oh yeah, for sure.
See, I do something similar, but what I do is more like journaling, like this. See, this is my daily count. This is my daily whatever, and that's about it. I'll jot down the basics of what was done that day. It's better than nothing. It's not quite as extensive as that, and I know. And every once in a while, I will do a page or so of writing, but I've been doing this for years. Every year I've got an old like stacks of these and if it comes up, like Marie and I'd be like, oh, we're looking at an old bill or something that came up, and where were we that day? I'm like, well, let me look, and I can tell you where we were, what we were doing that day. That does help, and it does also help, especially when you look back at what you were doing a year ago. This is what I like to do. Like, where was I today, 2 years ago, or 1 year ago? And by doing that, it does increase your awareness, because you realize what you were thinking then, what your mindset was a year ago when you're triggered, when you see exactly where you were and what you were doing. How I've changed. God, what was I thinking back then? All these little journaling is definitely a powerful exercise.
Well, and it also goes back to the kind of the main underlying topic of being aware, because the more you journal, the more you are aware of yourself. You're aware of your thoughts. Are aware of how you articulate and talk to yourself by writing. You are aware as you just flip through the pages from a year ago, and you see how you've progressed in self-expression and where your thoughts were at that time, and you can see a big difference in who and what you were and how you thought, just from a week ago. But it's very healthy, I believe. I'm a big fan of writing letters and a big fan of writing in the journal, and it's very, very therapeutic. And most people go through their lives with all of these things built up. They never express them. They have nobody to talk to, or at least that's what they think. And man, get it off your chest, write it out.
Kevin, what are that you can talk about, some of your life's biggest mistakes that you've made and the lessons that you've learned from them? If you want to go there and share any thoughts on that, because I'm a hard believer in mistakes are fantastic. Mistakes are great. The more mistakes you make, the faster you get to where you're going. That's a tough one.
I'll tell you, in business, my biggest mistake and that is also my biggest reward is trusting someone. Because you're taking a lot of risk. You're letting yourself be vulnerable. You're allowing yourself to expand into a new relationship. And when it works out, it's great. It's rewarding, fulfilling for everybody. And then when it doesn't, you think, damn, I missed the signs. I missed, whatever tons of business relationships that have worked out great. And I've had tons that were just horrible. And that's just, the way it goes. But that is the biggest reward and biggest mistake all rolled up into one.
Well,
And I
when you say
think
trusting someone,
that,
do you mean there wasn't enough defense mechanism set into place where you didn't have a plan B if they didn't pull through for you?
oh, for sure. I mean, some of my first business deals, big business deals, were being too trustworthy, trusting. I mean, I had one business partner that we started these in and out geriatric psychiatry hospital facilities, and he had made a modest living before, and then all of a sudden it started to be extraordinarily crazy cash flow. And all of a sudden his personality completely changed. I mean, we went from being best friends to damn near mortal enemies, and for nothing. I mean, just because of greed and him not either having the opportunity to self-reflect on what he was doing, or realizing the greed. I don't know, but boy, I've seen it several times in my life. But then also on the flip side of that, you kind of learn to be a little bit more cautious, a little bit more discerning. You can pick up as time goes on and your experience improves and deepens. You instantly know if somebody's telling you a line of crap, for the most part, unless they're really good with their line of crap. But you end up picking up the nuances. But then, sometimes people can fool you still. And and then you let your guard down because you either you like that person or whatever, and you can always get stung. But that's just the risk and part of life, because if you want to succeed in any endeavor, and I mean not just financially, I'm talking about succeed in well, what is the juice of life? The essence of life is the social and camaraderie aspect of creating and maintaining relationships with people, and growing throughout the course of time. And I would say that applies to us too. You came here, I don't know, 6, 8 months ago or something, whatever it was, and we had an evening together, you and some other guy, and that was great. And we both made a conscious effort, just kind of every so often, to throw a little dab of water onto that friendship plant, and so we nourish it. And that is the essence of life. You try to say, okay, well, I like this guy. I liked you, and we did that enough where I thought, well, I wonder if he would come over here and help me set up this computer thing. So I just asked, and you were willing to, and that is just a part of this budding friendship. So as that happens, it enriches our lives. We're able to be of a mutual benefit to each other as we progress in time.
Oh, it wasn't you, Kevin. It was just I just wanted to get out there to see Spartacus. It was just an excuse so I could hang out with Spartacus.
Well, I don't blame you. He's a nice horse to ride around the farm.
Well, I appreciate that, Kevin. Yeah, it's all just development. It's the small things, the efforts we make. The what was I going to say? It all ties back to the same lessons. Everything, it ties back to awareness and ego. I mean, I just really liked your website. The cover of it, I can't recommend it enough. It really sums it up in about 2 pages, everything that y'all are about. There was another topic that made me really perk up, because this has been a hot topic that I've talked about a lot. I interviewed a guy named Stefan Verstappen he gave a whole course on mutual aid groups, and there it is on your website. You've talked about mutual aid groups. So what's up with that?
Well, I think is vital in the world that we live in today, with so many unknowns, that to actually take what we were just talking about, developing and building those relationships, is we're actually forming our own community just between us, and that can reach out. But in this more concentrated question, I think we should have a plan B in worst case scenarios. It's a dangerous situation when we have politicians all over the world talking about nuclear war, and we would not hesitate to use nuclear weapons. That's a big thing. And there's only going to be a few places in the world that would be safe. And if we just happen to be in one of them, it would probably be a really good idea for us to have close friends around that we already established a level of trust. We kind of knew each other's talents a little bit, and how we can mutually keep each other safe and secure and have a fun way of doing it. Make it, hey, okay, well, it looks like the world's coming to an end. Anybody want to go play horseshoes?
Well, according to Stefan Verstappen, I'll link my interview with him down below as well. Historically, all the hard times and the cycles, these hard times come in cycles every, I think, 400 or 500 years, more or less, that they happen. And historically, the mutual aid groups are the ones who have not only survived, but in some cases thrived. And he goes into great detail about who they were, what they did right, what they did wrong, societies that failed and why, ones that did well and why. And yeah, he's pretty sure we're heading back into a dark age, and it's essential to build mutual aid societies right now.
For sure.
Yeah.
And even if that is not the case, there's still a lot of benefits from having uh, get-togethers with friends, whether they're on a philosophical level, whether you're talking about how to better garden around your house, or how do you do little simple permaculture things around your land or some friend's land that you can have uh, food, just especially even now, like with that inflation and food costs through the roof. Why not? Why wouldn't you have a little extra food somewhere? And maybe over time that would just reach out, but into the broader sense of humanity, because I just find it very disturbing that every landscape that city governments do almost everywhere, it's just greenery with a nice tree, some bushes. Why aren't those blueberry bushes? Why don't we have peaches and pears and apple trees growing everywhere? What?
Yeah.
Why
And
don't
that ties
why don't
back
we have
to the
permaculture?
permaculture
Yeah, why
concept.
don't
Don't grow lawns, grow gardens, man. Lawns are,
yeah. And if we did that, if we had more of a permaculture mindset, the whole idea of food prices being high would be laughable. Like we would just, what are you talking about? There's food everywhere for everybody. Everybody has plenty of bean proteins. Everybody has their own chickens and eggs. And if they don't want chickens, well, then their buddy has chickens and they got a couple of apple trees, whatever. If everybody was growing just a little food in the way that they particularly like to do it, or that was easiest for them, there would be a massive food abundance on this entire planet. And I had an epiphany with that when I was walking down. I wasn't far from the U.S. Embassy in Rome, and I was taking my cigar out on a morning walk, and they had these orange trees that were just lined, just regular sidewalk, and just how you would see just a normal, shade trees or whatever along. They were oranges, and I saw uh, a guy in front of me. He just reached up and grabbed one and just started cracking it, peeling it open to eat it. And I was like, wow, this is unbelievable. Just a light went off going, talk about solve uh, hunger problems everywhere. All these food programs that we have for all these kids everywhere that are just such a massive waste of money and malnutrition and all the crap that goes along in it. Geez, man, we could just solve so much. Probably put an end to childhood diabetes with a better diet.
yeah. And it all comes back to awareness. The people, imagine if all the order followers started to wake up, because they're, at the end of the day, they're the ones that are actually the problem, not the ones giving the orders. Because at the end of the day, we are responsible for our own actions, and it's that authority that's coming to your house to put, with the gun to follow the orders, and they're not thinking, is this just, is this right, who are they? There's no thinking involved there. So that's really going to be the crux of the situation. The more order followers that start waking up or stop getting that job, signing up for that job, maybe if they had a permaculture farm and that life was good, they wouldn't be forced into that kind of lifestyle. I don't know, I'm just speculating.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. A good example was that when Katrina hit and that big hurricane that wiped out much of New Orleans, and they stopped showing the clips of it pretty soon on national TV. It went out just a few times and then no more. But you would go in poor neighborhoods and wealthy and in between neighborhoods, and the National Guard was going in and forcing people to get rid of, turn over all their guns. And at the same time, you had the criminals with the guns running around everywhere, looting and robbing and stealing. And these National Guards guys, it's like, man, I cannot believe they're following these orders. They're going to tell these people that they cannot protect themselves. It's a pretty amazing thing that they don't realize that they're the bad.
Yeah.
They're the bad guys.
The following thing is quite complicated, though. Yeah, these guys, they don't know. Oh, they do know. I mean, it's not nescience, it's ignorance, because there's no way it could be. It is some form of ignorance. And then you meet people who have a good heart, that they mean well. They're great people per se, and they're cops or they're soldiers, and they've been, I don't know. It's a hard topic for me, because then the question is, if they're given the order to go and mow down a bunch of peaceful protesters, will they do it? I think in the US, probably not. I mean, some orders they're given are a fine line, and if there's a fine line, then they'll probably carry it out because they don't get the bigger picture. For example, a bunch of friends of mine, the Voluntarists of Dallas, every every Christmas they go and feed the need in Dallas. It's an amazing thing they do. Big setup. They set up all the food, and everybody gives donations, and all the homeless come out and they feed them. And technically, it's illegal, and they all open carry, because they can, and they do that every Christmas. So, as a cop, you're a cop in Dallas, and say you're actually given the order, you got to go stop these guys. What are you thinking? You're thinking, I'm trying to go. These guys have got, whether they have guns or not is irrelevant. The fact that you're going and stopping these people from feeding the homeless, when there's nothing wrong with that, it's just a stupid law. I don't know. I go back and forth about what goes through the mind of the cops and the soldiers, and because when it comes down to the crunch, they're the ones that go knock on the door, the CPS, to drag the child away. They're the ones who, what I mean, go and, I don't know, there's so many scenarios where it's a nonviolent situation, but because of the bigger overlying situation of trying to control the world, the psychopath eugenicist going on. Sorry, Kevin, what do you think of all that? I don't know.
Well, it is. There are a lot of fine lines, and I think it goes back into being aware of yourself. And then as you're aware of yourself, you become more aware of your broader, well, hopefully you become more aware of your broader influence, and then what other people are doing and how they're acting, and then what the nuances and what all that means. When you said some of it is nonviolent, like there are a lot of situations that have a negative impact on each of us, that are nonviolent, that can easily become violent because of police and soldiers and such. And one example of that is, which is a controversial topic, with people with primarily good intentions, that's teachers. You just think of teachers not in the role of teaching, forget what and how and everything they're doing to teach. Most teachers go in there thinking, oh, this is going to be great. I'm really going to enjoy this, have these kids and teaching. And what they have done outside of teaching, just completely outside of teaching, they have chosen a profession, no matter how well intended, no matter how good hearted. They're stealing money from people. They are forcing, by what they have chosen, they are forcing people to rent their land from the government and never own their homes, never own their property, never being in a situation to feel 100% secure in their land and their homes and their business property and all of it, because they are forced by other
Government.
it's just a mafia type mindset. Yeah, it's the government in large part acts and treats the citizenry like a mobbish thug. You're either gonna pay up today, or we're gonna take your property. So you have these good intentioned people, no matter how you disagree or might agree with the schools themselves, but being funded on the back of homeowners is a travesty. It is a sin against the moral fiber of any reasonable and good person. And so that is a big dilemma. It's one of those things that is not discussed in the much, other than complaints about property taxes. Oh, we hate property taxes being so high. I mean, you hear that a lot, but you don't get to the root cause of that. Well, all you teachers are, does that make you an accomplice in criminal behavior? And the answer is yes, without a doubt. No matter how you slice it, you participating and forcing people to pay rent on property either they have already paid for. Most people don't think about it because they have mortgages and their taxes go into their mortgage payment. And so when they get to the end of their mortgage and they go to pay for their house, and all of a sudden they still have massive bills every year, like, oh God, thought I own my house now. No, you don't. You're never going to own it. You're never going to own your home. And that is to me, that is people not realizing who the baddies are. You know, sweet first grade teacher who you have fond memories of and love was actually an accomplice in crime by never allowing people that you know and around you, including yourself, to ever actually own your own property.
Kevin, that was an excellent
if
example. Yeah, property tax. It's the worst, arguably one of the most evil. All taxes are evil, but that is one of the worst. Yeah, you don't own it.
Yeah, you never own it, and so how can you be secure in something that you would like to think that is yours? You know, every man is king in his own home. Man's house is his castle. That is not true. Every man's house is the government's castle. It's insanity.
Kevin, I do want to start wrapping up here. We've been talking quite a while now. It's been great chatting with you. I could keep going, man. I got all these notes, and I just pick a point and we go with it. But we should start wrapping up. I got to go pick up my kids in about an hour. And tonight I've got Benny Wills. So he's wrapping up. Yeah, he's wrapping up his course on parrhesia. He's killing it with that. So there's a lot going on right now. I'm just really impressed with the Mystics of Texas. I look forward to backtracking and catching up on some of y'all's conversations. I felt like that section on the Old Testament, the Old Bible, I thought, that could be something I'd be interested in diving into. I never studied the Bible, but I know it is one of the greatest books. It's part of the great books of the Western world, and arguably a metaphor for a lot of things that are right in front of our face. I don't know. There's a lot to it. There's so much to your website. Sorry, go ahead.
I appreciate you saying that. The reason we started that, and the reason I was really focused on that, is that there are quite a few of these big books, such as the Bible, the Quran, the Bhagavad Gita, the Vedas, all these religious texts that have such a powerful influence on how the world is governed and how we are treated as individuals in different regions of the world. And if you want to understand that a little bit better, you have to understand what it is everyone believes in. And it's something. Delving into the Old Testament and the New Testament. Unless you've read it cover to cover, it is not what you think it is. I would highly encourage everyone to read it cover to cover, or just go to the mysticsoftexas.com and just start going. We dissect it one book at a time and just have a good time doing it.
I've been avoiding biblical studies and all of that my whole life. My parents never made me go to church when I was a kid, luckily. So I don't have that damage there done to a lot of people that I know have. But I thought, okay, I'm aware of the Bible. I know all the names and all that. But, only in these last few years, it ties into everything else of just generally trying to develop as a person and learn. I can't, it's ignorance and it's stupid of me. I need to learn I need to study the Bible. I need to read it because just for what you just said exactly, um, it explains, because whether you believe it or not is irrelevant to the fact that a lot of people do, and the actions that they take accordingly are real. You know, and those actions
Yeah,
sometimes
they
and
have
quite
a real.
often do affect you. So, like you just said, it just helps you understand and even predict a bit what's the way things are going. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think it's a mistake not to be really aware and to be once you understand it and have read it from cover to cover, it really slowly and patiently and letting it all digest, it changes your perspective on looking at other people when they tell you certain things about what they believe in. It gets pretty eye opening, and um, either sometimes it can attract you to other people or sometimes really repel you, depending on your perspective.
Well, I'm gonna start diving into your previous work, and I encourage anyone listening to check out Mystics of Texas. And as I go through and learn more about it, this hopefully maybe could lead to more conversations with you guys. I'm sure I'll be having all kinds of questions come up, and so let's keep this flow going, Kevin.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate you having me on, and I do appreciate your help from coming all the way from Dallas area over here to help me set up this new equipment. And it was very kind of you. And it is this podcast and the Mystics of Texas that really allowed us to meet through Richard and become friends. And the Mystics of Texas has been a wonderful thing, and been able to introduce me to a lot of people that are started becoming a part of my life. And I'm really grateful for it. I'm very thankful people have an interest and that it continues to grow.
Very good, Kevin. Just one last question. What's in the pipeline for you? You got with your website and your YouTube channel. Do y'all just going to keep doing your Sunday sessions? Do you have any more interviews planned or any special projects? Anything coming up?
Yeah, for sure. We are only on Ezekiel in our Bible, which is a little bit more than the halfway mark. We're going to finish that, of course, over time. And we have interviews. We have an interview on Thursday with a fantastic young man who has traveled the world and spent 2 years at a Kung Fu monastery in China, and as a young man, and traveled the world. Just a phenomenal guy. I'm excited to be talking to him on Thursday. So that video will be up next week. We have interview requests for quite a few big names that I'm really excited about that are very likely going to be happening in the near future. So I'm going to continue to interview people along our genre that are pretty phenomenal philosophers and thinkers. So I'm excited about that. And of course, we always are going to have our Sunday gatherings, and whether it is our small group or a little bit bigger group, it's always going to be one or two of us or three or four uh, in having those kind of discussions, just like last week, that we thought it was a good idea to talk about why we all make excuses for everything, uh, and every topic that you can imagine, from what is happiness to why do we make excuses. I mean, you can find, I mean, I think we have 300 different topics in our video collection already. So it's pretty sprawling.
And just in case someone's listening that is geographically near you, I don't want to give away where exactly you are, but you want to give, like, if you're in the what vicinity, come on out
Yeah,
kind of thing.
if you're in East Texas, we start. You're welcome to be here at 1:30 every Sunday, and it's really a good idea to call too. You can go to mysticsoftexas.com. I just put my phone number; it's on there. You can email too. Is all on the Mystics of Texas. You can contact me and let us know you're coming, because sometimes we'll have a group that might come just a little early and we might be on the backside of the farm or something. So it's a good idea to know where you're going when you get here. It's kind of a big place.
And I should stress Northeast Texas, because East Texas is a big area.
Yeah, that's a big place. Yeah, we're 20 minutes from Marshall, 30 minutes from Shreveport. So we're
Yeah.
right on the state line.
Because someone down in Jasper might say, "Oh, great," and then they realize, "Oh, wait, it's about a 4-hour drive." That's not the same.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So, well, Chris, thank you again for having me. I really appreciate it.
Walking down the street, the children play. For them, it's just another day. The future's reflected in their parents' faces, who chose to stay on in this place where they were born, went to school, got married, and kids, like their grandparents before them did. Got to escape, before it's too late. Although today I could say that I really will miss the when Santa. But yeah, I was right. Knew what it was like when Santa.
You've been listening to truthconduit.com with Chris McMillan. Go to the subscribe page and sign up to get notifications of the latest posts. And check out the support page to help keep it going.
Yeah, I've got a friend in Jesus Christ. I've got a friend in Jesus Christ, and Krishna and Buddha and my bartender.
Have you found that your skills aren't matching up with the challenges ahead? Here are 19 essential skills for success that school never taught you. Get your free copy by following the link below or visit getautonomy.info/19skills.